and bioremediation. So what is biotechnology? Well, the easiest way to think about biotechnology is that it's the combination of biology and technology. And while biotechnology encompasses a wide range of things, some common examples of biotechnology include the development of drugs and genetic manipulation. Now, biotechnology is actually uh, plays a substantial role in our everyday lives, and we might not notice it. And one example of this is GMO crops, genetically modified crops. And if you look at this image, um, on the left hand side, you have organic tomato, and on the right hand side, you have a GMO tomato. Um, and the genetically modified tomato, it obviously looks bigger. So scientists are able to go in and change the genes of this tomato crop to make it that it looks it grows bigger. It might taste better, and it might be stronger to elements such as like bad weather or like insects, those kinds of things. So what is bioremediation? So bioremediation is a type of biotechnology, and it involves the use of microorganisms to clean polluted areas. And microorganisms are tiny organisms that cannot be seen by the naked eye, such as bacteria, virus, protozoa, and fungi. And these microorganisms can convert harmful pollutants into less harmful materials. And it's also important to note that um, there are many different types of bioremediation for different types of chemical pollutants. So we know what bioremediation does, but what exactly does it look like? So if you look at this image, on the top you have a before picture and on the bottom you have an after picture, and you can see just how much of an effect it has. You can see all this greenery in the after picture, and the environment looks a lot, you know, it looks cleaner, and I think that's a very important thing, especially in an environment where it looks like there's a lot of people who live in this area. So it's important to keep a safe, clean, and nice area. Now, it's an estimated 200 million tons of hazardous material is produced in the United States every year. And so, what do we do with it? So, in the 1980 Superfund Program was established by the U.S. Congress. It was an initiative of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to counteract careless practices of chemical dumping and storage. And it was focused around the concern about how these chemical pollutants might affect human health and the environment. And so the purpose uh, is that to locate and clean up hazardous waste sites. Because before that, or during that time, people weren't very informed about just how harmful these pollutants could be. So here we have a list of chemical pollutants. Just some of the chemical pollutants. There's a very, very long list of chemical pollutants, but here are just a couple common ones. For example, at the very beginning, you have benzene, and benzene can be found in petroleum products that are used to make plastics, nylon, resins, rubber, detergents, and many other materials. So what can these chemicals do? Well, chemicals that might be released in the environment by accident or in purpose, unfortunately, uh, they might include carcinogens that they, they they can cause cancer. They might be mutagens. They can mutate organisms. They might cause rashes or birth defects, and they might poison plants and animals. And 1 in 5 Americans actually live near a polluted site. Now, pollutants can enter the environment in many different ways. Tanker spills, truck accidents, a ruptured chemical tank at an industrial site might release pollutants into the air. And like I said, the different kinds of chemical pollutants require different kinds of bioremediation methods. But in addition, the location of the accident, the amount of chemicals released, and the duration of the spill can impact the environment in many different ways, and we must also consider those factors as well. So, the Environmental Genome Project was used to study and understand the impact of environmental chemicals on human disease. So, genome data was generated to enable scientists and researchers to understand not only how the environment contributes to disease risk, but also how these specific diseases are actually influenced by these environmental chemicals. And so, back to microbes. Uh, so what we talked about what a microbe was. It's a tiny living thing that is found all around us. They exist in water, soil, and in the air. Uh, Bacteria, fungi, algae, protozoa, and viruses. And for future reference, microbes and more microorganisms are interchangeable terms. So microbes actually play a very large role in bioremediation, in a type of bioremediation. So scientists are studying organisms such as microbes that can be used for bioremediation, and they can be these different strains. For example, a different strain of bacteria can be genetically modified um, to be more effective in the bioremediation method. So bioremediation genomic programs. So scientists use microbes, especially bacteria, as tools to clean up the environment, and it involves the combined action of um, both aerobic and anaerobic bacteria to fully decontaminate polluted areas. One term, indigenous microbes, refers to the microbes that are naturally found at a polluted site. These are often isolated, grown, and studied in a lab, and then released back into treatment environments in large numbers. And I'll talk more about these different methods and treatment methods a little bit later. But also, two important terms. Anaerobic means it does not use oxygen, and aerobic means it uses oxygen. So now we kind of want to look at bioremediation on a molecular level. So we've kind of talked about how microbes play a big role in bioremediation, in that microbes convert chemicals into harmless substances by aerobic metabolization, which requires oxygen, or anaerobic metabolism, which does not require oxygen. And both processes involve another kind of reaction, oxidation and reduction, in which oxidation refers to the removal of one or more electrons from an atom or molecule, and reduction refers to the addition of one or more electrons to an atom or molecule. So here's a very good diagram of aerobic biodegradation and anaerobic biodegradation. So for example, you have in up here you have an organic chemical, benzene, and what you see here is the electrons are transferred to this oxygen because oxygen is an electron acceptor, and it creates carbon dioxide and H2O, water, and biomass, which are all not harmful to the environment. So we have something that's harmful, and then we're able to use electron transfer, and it creates something that's not harmful. And anaerobic biodegradation is a similar process. Instead, you don't use oxygen because remember, anaerobic means no oxygen, and aerobic means it uses oxygen. So instead of oxygen, electrons are transferred to nitrate as the electron acceptor. For example, here we have toluene, and what we the products are carbon dioxide, nitrogen, water, and biomass, which are all safe for the environment. Now here are just these are just two examples, but there are many different kinds of products and reactions and products that can be found through both aerobic biodegradation and anaerobic biodegradation processes. So here's a very short chart of different microorganisms and how they can be applied. It's important to note, just like the list of chemical pollutants, these are just only some of the many microorganisms. So, for example, we can look at the second one, Alcanivorex borcumensis. So the bioremediation application, these hydrocarbon degrading marine bacterium are very effective in that they are able to break down components of crude and refined oil. I find that very interesting. So basically, it can be used in For example, in an oil spill, um, uh, to break down the oil into something a little bit more safe for the environment.